You're welcome back to the Gavel. Nigeria has had a long-running problem of inadequate electricity supply, and no part of the country is exempt from this problem. We went on the streets of Abuja to speak with Nigerians on the electricity situation in their areas, and it appears that the situation is getting worse. Nigeria has for years grappled with poor electricity supply in different parts of the country. Various interventions by the federal government and the privatization of electricity distribution by the previous administration has not improved the situation. What is worse, electricity supply has been rapidly deteriorating in the last 1 month. Residents of Abuja are bemoaning the poor electricity supply in the last 1 month. Speaking to Channels Television, they say it is threatening their businesses.
Our business has been bad because without the electricity, we cannot, our business cannot move on, and we'll keep on burning gen and all that. So I just pray that as time goes on, things will improve.
No, in fact, these days is very bad. Unlike last year, the light is constantly okay, but these days, in fact, since beginning of this year January, the light is very, very bad.
We like the government to do more on the electricity, because in this present situation that we are now, because of the volume of the heat, the sun, so the electricity is not that constant. And when the NEPA light come, before you know it, they have taken it off.
So we are not enjoying electricity as we're supposed to. We are not at all. So they need to do something, because they say they are coming with change. I think the change should be something positive.
They are also lamenting the bills and charges for electricity which they receive every month end.
Electricity has deteriorated. That's the word I will use. It has deteriorated because, and the NEPA, they are not even helping the matter. It is the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company. They are bringing high tariff. There's no availability of light, and they are bringing high tariff. It's not good. You can see we are running gen. We buy diesel to run the business because business has to go on. And at the end of the month, they will bring bill for you, whether you use the electricity or not. They bring bill. When you apply for the meter, it's not available.
Abuja residents are asking the federal government to look critically into the situation and find a long-lasting solution to this challenge. We sat down with a member of a Senate ad hoc committee on power, Senator Mohammed Hassan, to understand why the solution to improving electricity supply in Nigeria has so far eluded government.
This issue of power in Nigeria has a long history. The problems on ground are quite many. There are a lot of challenges, to the best of my knowledge. For example, if you look at the entire privatization exercise, the unbundling of the entire power sector, you know, it came with a lot of challenges. For example, let me start by saying, if you remember this issue of investing over $8.4 billion for setting up gas-powered plants, I can tell you, even the siting of some of these power plants, the location or siting of these power plants in some cases were purely based on political reasons. For example, take Calabar power plants, which I think has an installed capacity of 564 megawatts. It is sited in a place where the nearest source of gas to this power plant is more than 100 nautical miles away from this power plant. And it's offshore, meaning you have to spend 3-4 times to provide the infrastructure, and this is undersea, compared to if you should do this from an onshore source for gas. Generally speaking, I can say the major problem we're having, or I think, in my view, is the issue, one is the issue of the gas, two, you have a major issue of infrastructure with, the capacity of the transmission company of Nigeria to transmit the electricity generated for onward transmission to the distribution companies. So far from what I've seen or what we've heard from consultants in my committee that we worked with, said the TCN has a maximum capacity of 6,500 megawatts. And even if you generate, which most of them have said that we have the capacity of generating 14, 15. The problem is not just the capacity, the quantity or the amount of the power you generate. The transmission is one part of the problem. So again, if TCN has a capacity of just 6,500, even if you have more than 6,500 megawatts on ground, it doesn't have the capacity to evacuate, to move it to the distribution companies. Now, even the distribution companies too, they have their own limitations as to the quantity or the amount of power to receive from the transmission companies. So I think there are a lot of issues, and I think the government has to look at this problem in a holistic manner, because it's a chain, and this chain has to be looked at thoroughly.
When you say government should look at this in a holistic manner, what does this entail?
Let me give you a very simple example, because, for example, the distribution companies rely solely on the transmission company. The transmission company relies on the power plants. And as I said, remember, more than 80% of our power plants are gas powered. More than 80% of our power plants are gas powered. Therefore, we rely a lot on gas. If you take as I said many times, the distribution companies, the way this part of this component, which is the distribution aspect of the power sector, was privatized, it was full of flaws, a lot of flaws all over in the entire exercise process. These are, in fact, about 90% of the distribution companies don't have the financial and technical capacity to manage these companies. That is a fact of the matter. They do not. What we saw or what we have seen is that most of them took bank loans to acquire these national assets, and these national assets were undervalued, valued at 50% of their determined value, and sold to individuals who do not have the financial and technical capacity to manage these companies. Again, we saw at a time where Central Bank of Nigeria had to intervene by injecting 213 billion naira, technically speaking, saying they were paying their bank loans. So the challenges or the problems are myriad. We have so many problems in this power sector, and I think that is what the federal government should look at. As I said many times, this same sector has suffered, and is a very critical sector that affects every individual in this country. It's the bedrock of our economy. Now, if in 5 years you will have, or we had 8 ministers who served in 5 years, just 5 years, in the Ministry of Power. What does this portend? It tells you that there will be full of inconsistencies, and a lot of them, when appointed, they have to start grappling to understand the basics of the industry. Some do not have any knowledge of the industry, so it's a problem. So these are the things that I think federal government should look at.
Now, we know that gas is a critical element for electricity generation in Nigeria. How do we bridge this gap?
What I think, in my view, is that, the Nigerian Gas Company is just a transporter of the gas, because they have all the facilities to evacuate this gas from the source. For example, we can set up a regime like gas supply contract. Let this the power plants have access to the source, get to the real source of the gas suppliers, such that you have an agreement with them, and then you use the Nigerian gas company to transport. You pay the gas supplier, and you get the Nigerian gas company to evacuate, to transport it to your site. This is what I think. But now everything is centered around the Nigerian gas company, and that's a problem. And again, in my view, I think we should have gas storage facilities, as is obtained in every part of the world. But people will argue to say, look, we don't even have the facility. So what do you mean by saying we should have a storage? It is for the rainy days. It's a situation like this. You remember, I mean, even in your house, I'm sure you have a tank. You make storage for your diesel, for your generator. It's not when you need diesel that you always go for it to go and buy in the market. No, you should have storage facilities. And I think these are things that should be done. And again, as I said many times too, if you look at this, this power sector, not just from the distribution company, even the way the privatization of this the distribution companies, the exercise was carried on. There are many flaws. I've said this many times and many times. The BPE, in my view, has been the major problem in this, in the sense that you have BPE on the board of directors of all these distribution companies. Meanwhile, its primary responsibility is to monitor the activities of this distribution companies. Nobody does that. Nobody does that. I raised a motion on the floor of the Senate the other time on how TCN is being managed regarding this the management contract by Manitoba. This is a company that is paid in dollars and doesn't pay taxes. This company is paid from scarce public funds and is paid in dollars, doesn't pay taxes. So these are issues which, of course, a resolution was passed. When I presented the motion on the floor of the Senate, a resolution was passed, and the whole matter is going to be investigated. In fact, it's the issue of this budget that has distracted this exercise for a while.
Now, have investigations started by the Senate on the Manitoba, on the motion you brought on Manitoba?
We have started asking for documents from the relevant agencies, from BPE, from the Federal Ministry of Power, and many other agencies like that. But the real investigation hasn't started yet. We've been faced, as you are aware, with the budget. So, and I'm sure as soon as we resume plenary, we'll go into this, we'll look at it.
Now, we know some weeks back, the Senate asked the NERC and the federal government to reverse its the increase in tariff, to go back to status quo. Do you support, the Senate's decision to ask that the tariffs, that Nigerians should go back to status quo as regards the tariff, or would you prefer, or would you have gone along with the call for an increase in electricity tariff by the Minister of Power?
You see, in my view, we should go back the status quo. I mean, the resolution of the Senate that the increase should be reversed, that has not been implemented. And I'm sure by the time we resume, some of us will raise this. And that resolution must be enforced. It must be enforced. And you see, what is it about this increase in tariff? And it has to do with the collection loss. I've always said this. Who takes the burden? It's just like when you have 3 individuals that pay their bills. I mean, out of 3 people, 2 pay bills, the other one doesn't pay, and you expect the 2 to take the burden of the 3rd one. That is what they call the collection loss. And that's the problem of the distribution companies. They are so inefficient in their, with the collection system that they have. The collection system they have is very, very inefficient. And that burden shouldn't be passed to the ordinary Nigerian? Why should you go and, I mean, you're saying the problem is as a result of collection loss. Why should that burden be passed on to you who pays your bills? Saying, okay, because Mr. A cannot pay his bill, Mr. B pays, now you're going to increase Mr. B's bill so that he takes care of the one who doesn't pay. I think that's not fair. We're not going to accept that. That resolution must be enforced.
Now, we still have issues with estimated billing and, insufficient supply of meters for Nigerians across the country.
These companies, these distribution companies, do not have the financial and technical capacity to run these companies. The truth of the matter is that there is what they call the metering plan, which formed part of the performance agreement. And that boils down to what I earlier said, that BPE has abdicated that responsibility of monitoring the activities of, the distribution companies. If BPE was not on the board of directors of all these distribution companies, BPE would have been checking all those things, would have been monitoring the performance of these distribution companies. They're not doing anything. No one looks after that. So they do whatever they like. And that's where we are now.
So going forward, what should government be doing? What should we be looking out for?
In my opinion, is one, the TCN, the Transmission Company of Nigeria, the infrastructure to evacuate this power should be improved. Federal government should invest in the transmission part of the power sector. TCN hasn't been privatized. It is the only component that hasn't been privatized. We've privatized the distribution part of it, but the TCN, the transmission part is still with the government. And that's where we have the Manitoba managing the company. And again, even in with the gas-powered plants, the government should intervene and ensure that these gas-powered plants have easy access to gas. Very, very important.
Now, this is where we draw the curtains on this week's edition of The Gavel. If you have any views on any of the issues discussed, please email us on thegavel@channelstv.com. Thank you for staying with us and see you again next week.